If you can please take your seats, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with introductions. I'm going to pass the microphone off to the gentleman in front of me, Mr. Bob Skehan, and he'll introduce himself and then he will pass the mic along.
Thanks, Denise. As she mentioned, my name is Bob Skehan. I'm the Director of the Office of Safety and Mobility for the department. My job is to oversee groups of people that do safety engineering for all of the highway system in Maine, the public highway system. And oftentimes we analyze data to find places where there are hotspots or areas that we think there are safety issues. So it's all a data-driven safety analysis that leads us to locations that we need to take a closer look at. The intersection of Route 148 and Ward Hill Road and County Road is one of those locations that came up as part of our data-driven safety analysis that warranted a closer look. So those tools tell us a number of things. They tell us where there are issues potentially. We have a variety of tools that look at the past, crash history, accident severity. We also have tools that are more predictive in nature. So if we were not to do anything, what is the risk that we take as, you know, as your employees, and for those of us that use the system, what's the risk for us to leave it as is, and does that make sense? Beyond that, when we look at alternatives that are appropriate safety countermeasures that we can change the infrastructure with, sometimes there's a cost associated as far as time is concerned. So there's a balance that we try to strike between safety improvements and the mobility of everybody that uses the network. So that's the tough part of the job here. Sometimes we have a win-win where the improvement that we want to make will make people's trips shorter time-wise and much safer. Other times we may ask people to have a little more delay when they use that highway, but at a great increase in the safety of everybody that travels the roadway. And so we look at potential countermeasures or solutions through that type of lens. The three of us here, our job is really how can we improve the safety of the highway network, and what options do we have available so that we get home, safely, that you get home safely, our family and neighbors get home safely, and our visitors that come from away that are probably unfamiliar with our network get to their destinations safely. But we have to be mindful of, the commerce of the region as well. So that's the tough part here. What we feel like we've come up with here, which you've heard of, and you're all here to talk about proposed always stop, is one of those situations where we feel very strongly, based on our professional experience, studying the data, seeing the performance of areas that we've installed these in the past over time, both before and after, and the site conditions specific to this intersection, and particularly with 148, which right now you don't have to stop. We're going to ask in this solution that we're proposing that everybody stop and give a little bit of time for us to gain the benefits of reduced fatalities and serious injuries. And that ultimately is our goal. We're not going to prevent all crashes on Maine's highways, but if we can prevent fatalities and serious injuries, then that's moving our needle in the right direction. Okay? So I understand also from Denise that there are many of you here that probably are here to voice your concerns about what we're proposing. There perhaps are other alternatives or ideas that you might want to share with us. I'm here to listen and take this information back. When we go back to Augusta tomorrow and we have discussions, I've already briefed the chief engineer, who's the top engineering guy at the department who I work for. I spoke with Commissioner Dowdy today, who would like to have been here to have this conversation with you, but he's preparing for his confirmation to move from acting commissioner to full-time commissioner tomorrow. So he sent me on his behalf, basically, but he's very interested to hear the result of what you folks tell us here today. Okay, and so we could, it's up to Denise, if you'd like to start with some comments and concerns that people have. We've heard about 4 concerns expressed prior to this meeting, which Dennis will cover in his presentation. But if there's something off the top of your head that you really want us to know right up front, if you have other thoughts and ideas before we get started, then we're happy to hear them now.
All right, let me have the mic just for a second, please. Thank you, Bob. Before we get started with comments, I want to just remind everybody that we have some guidelines. If you request to speak, you should be a Madison resident. Identify yourself by name. Each resident will have 3 minutes to speak or ask questions or offer comments. Obscene, threatening, or overly repetitive comments will not be tolerated. And we would appreciate it if there's no disruptive or disorderly conduct. We want to make sure that the behavior is civil, the discourse is civil, and that we are looking for proactive movement in a way that is going to get us to the best solution possible. Thank you.
Okay, with that in mind, does anyone have an initial question? Yes, sir.
My name is Chris Ryan, I'm a resident of Madison. I think we all in this room agree that something has to be done in that intersection. There has been a lot of crashes there. A four-way intersection to me just seems like if we could try maybe a couple other little things. Lincoln red light coming from Old County to Ward Hill with a yellow light going White Schoolhouse Road, something like that up overhead. Maybe possibly taking down some trees on both sides of the road to make that wide open for people to see those, the signs that's already currently there better. When you turn right onto White Schoolhouse Road, I have a business in town. When you turn right on there, you're going to almost watch your rear tires. If not, you're going to go right in that ditch. It's very sharp to turn right to go towards Skowhegan. And I just think a four-way intersection, I think Jeff at the highway department's going to constantly be babysitting that intersection during a storm, having trucks and cars that can't restart to get up that hill. That's just my suggestion. I don't know if it's any possible way of purchasing a little bit of land and maybe moving it, the Ward Hill over a little bit so it's in front of the trailer so people know that it's actually a stop there and that it's not a continued road. I think from people from afar that's not around here, it seems like that's the problem, is they think it just continues on as a straight road and they don't realize it's an intersection. Just a couple little things that I thought of for this public hearing. Thank you for the consideration. I appreciate you not having this is what we're going to do and you have to live with it. I appreciate you bringing that back to you.
Sure, no, I appreciate the feedback, and certainly it's something that if we haven't addressed it in the, some of your questions I know we've addressed in the presentation, but some of these are new that we will want to have a chance to mull over and discuss beyond this meeting. Thank you. Yes, sir.
For those who don't know me, I'm Jeff Wright, the road commissioner here in town. I agree with Mr. Roy with some of his suggestions as far as taking some of the trees out to have better visibility, especially for vehicles coming up the hill and seeing vehicles on the Ward Hill side. I do have a serious concern about the loaded trucks traffic that's stopping and starting on that hill, especially in the wintertime. I would be more concerned about more rear-end crashes than anything, and the impatient drivers that do not want to wait behind a loaded truck to get going again. The truck traffic on that road, trucks going to Sappy and trucks coming across, fuel trucks, cement trucks, gravel trucks. There's a lot of trucks on that road. I've thought about this long and hard, and I'm kind of make a suggestion to see what you guys think of reducing the speed limit on the 148 side to 35 or 40, but also taking the speed limit on the Ward Hill and the Old County Road to 25 miles an hour, about 1,000 feet in, and putting calming tables in the road on both sides to get people's attention about 500 feet in, so that will get their attention before they get to the intersection. Because it was sitting in the presentation back in October when you gentlemen were here, I noticed that a lot of the accidents were occurring during the daylight hours. So it kind of seems to me that the lights are working. Obviously, more lights will probably help. There is a landowner that owns to the left-hand side of the Ward Hill Road, would be willing to cut some trees out of the right-of-way to improve the visibility. And that is a 4-rod road, so that the road is 66 feet wide. And I would seriously like to see, some consideration and some different things before, we try and always stop. That is a through road, through Skowhegan. A lot of people travel that every day to get to work. And it is a high-speed road, and the speed limit is 50, but a lot of people aren't doing 50 miles an hour, and anybody can testify to that and travel on that road. So, and I appreciate you guys coming, and I will, if you guys have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Tim has my number. So thanks for coming.
Perfect, thank you very much. And there are a few ideas here that I'm not sure have been discussed, but some of them you'll see again with regards to the speed limit. We did notice today, Dennis and I were talking, that I don't think I saw any speed limit signs posted on Ward Hill Road or County Road. And so by state law, as a rural road, that would be a 45 mile an hour.
It is. There is marked 45 as soon as you turn on the Ward Hill Road.
So that's something that if the town wants the region traffic engineer, who's sitting right there, Tim Susi, he's the guy who would make that determination. And so he's now heard your suggestion on that, and I'm sure we'll have some discussions on that. He may have some additional questions.
Yeah, because that road is a 45 by default, correct?
Correct. That's my understanding of the statute.
Yeah.
Again, I'm Tim Susi, the region traffic engineer. I work out of the Wilton office, and I've worked with Jeff for 3 years. Setting speed limits. Default by state statute, if it's rural, it's 45. If it's 25. If it's urban, it's 25. As a rule, we kind of actually discourage people from posting the defaults because a default kind of implies it's been studied, and I don't know that it ever has. Certainly if the town wants to conduct a study, we can do that. The only thing I caution is, and I'm glad you mentioned potentially doing other methods of traffic calming like speed tables and whatever else, because it is very difficult to get someone to drive 25 in an urban area, as I'm sure you all know. So to do it in an area that doesn't necessarily feel urban, that somewhat has more of a rural feel, is a challenge. I just want to make sure that's understood. But yeah, I think our department will definitely work with you on speed studies and any requests that come forward from this meeting.
Thank you, Jim.
We just want to talk a little bit about, I'll get to you in just a second, sir. I just want to talk a little bit about things that we know about driver behavior, okay? Driver behavior is not a part of, it's a consideration that we have because we've just been experienced in reading studies and surveys and measurements of, the speeds that people travel, working with law enforcement and looking at, where they're, what measurements they're getting. We actually have a variety of means to get radar information, sometimes through the speed feedback trailers that we make available to towns. Those actually will record speeds, not who's doing the speeding, but it'll give us some data that we can use to know for engineering study purposes. But we do know that simply changing a speed limit sign doesn't change, in general, driver behavior. What really influences the speed that every one of us that gets behind the wheel drive is how the road feels. So it's the road, or the context of the road really influences the driver's selection of how fast to drive. And data will back us up that simply lowering the speed limit alone without changing the context of the road won't have the intended or desired effect. In fact, it potentially could create more problems than we would hope to achieve by reducing the speed limit in the first place. You mentioned rear end crashes as an example, or this gentleman did over here. Because you have people sitting in this room, I bet some of us do drive the speed limit, and there are others that drive what they feel the speed limit is, what speed is comfortable. That differential in speeds is a safety issue in and of itself. So if someone's driving 25 on that road, but someone says, I've driven 45 miles an hour all my life and that's the way this road feels, now we get two vehicles traveling in the same direction with a 20-mile-an-hour speed differential that would be more severe than people driving at a similar speed. So I just want to keep in mind, or just let you folks know that that's one of the issues that we consider, is that changing the speed limit alone isn't necessarily going to influence the driver's behavior the way we would like it to. So, do you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay. This gentleman right here was...
Yes, sir. My name's Rick Vining. I've driven truck all my life, and I'm one. I am for safety by all means, and I won't repeat what Jeff said because he pretty much touched on everything there was. But to me, I for one, no matter what we do, we'll say for a four-way stop, that's not going to stop people from coming through. They still do. We got it up there. They got the flashing lights on them. And to me, it's impeding, especially truck traffic, when you come up there like that. It's going to impede the movement of traffic and create more of a hazard than it is a health issue of moving things along. And I just don't believe that by doing this, that we're solving our problem. To me, if they want to do anything to help in the safety aspect of it, then I would have, like they do with a lot of intersections, with the red light up there flashing for one way and the amber for the other. And that is my biggest concern, like I said, is impeding traffic, because now you start off, you've got somebody that did come through, instead of just a vehicle, they're gonna go under a trailer, and that's gonna be a lot worse off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts, sir. Gentleman with the red shirt.
Peter Dodge, Madison resident. Like you said to begin with, we're not going to slow down for a speed limit sign. It's sure the hell they're going to stop for a stop sign. They're going to come down over that hill with that truck, and they're going to look both ways, and they're going to say, I'm not going to stop because I've never had it before and I ain't going to now. So if you're going to change people's traffic, you've got a better chance of putting the red light up on one side, like you just said, the yellow the other. I live on the end of Ward Hill Road. They come down off that road at 100 miles an hour at times. So they don't stop at a stop sign. They're not going to stop if the other guy's got a stop sign. That's just plain and simple. They're not going to stop.
Thank you for your thoughts, sir. Ma'am, black jacket.
Yeah, my name is Kim Mercier. I will reiterate what all of these guys have said, but I wonder if you've considered the law of unintended consequences. If you put an all-way stop there, I wonder if trucks won't just reroute to Norridgewock, who has traffic problems of their own. And if we're dumping more truck traffic through there, that's going to be a nightmare for them. And I just don't think we can ask truckers to stop in the middle of that hill. I just think they're going to create a bigger problem.
In the area on that side, if you guys are taking tests, if you guys are taking tests, you know that they're going just as many trucks going up and down Ward Hill Road, the old county road, if there is coming down over that hill. That road is a truck issue ever since they opened up the tomato plant and the new bridge.
Yep.
So that's trucks coming all the way, four directions. You're not going to stop them in the middle of the winter. They're not going to be able to stop and recorrect. It's bad enough to get two people to stop. You're not going to get all four.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Man with the black jacket behind you, sir.
Richard Bartlett, and I live on the Ward Hill Road, and to begin with, that intersection, look at it, yes, Denise?
Please introduce yourself. Introduce yourself.
I did.
Okay, I missed it.
Richard Bartlett again. That intersection is deceptively dangerous. It comes in on an angle rather than on 90 degrees. If you're coming from the Ward Hill Road onto 148, you're coming in on an angle, and if you look towards the east, or coming from Skowhegan, you look up there, and possibly that post in your, right next to your passenger side may be blocking part of your view. Plus, because you're coming in on an angle, you're not actually looking all the way up on the Ward Hill Road, on the 148, that you would be if you came in on a 90-degree angle. Looking towards town, you have quite an open area there, but you don't coming from Skowhegan. So I've noticed many times people coming into 148, they look like they're going to turn towards Skowhegan, and they make a left coming into Madison. And when I come to that intersection, and I do it several times a day, I look up there towards Skowhegan, I pause for another second or two, and I look again, because I know from experience that it's a dangerous intersection. I've never had an accident, but I've seen them, I've been there after. Down the road another mile or so, at the intersection of Blackwell Hill and Russell Road, they've got the lights down there, so if you're coming from the Russell Road or from the Blackwell Hill Road, you look up and you can see the traffic's coming from your left or your right. And I would suggest that may be something you want to use. But as far as putting stop signs there, there's 22-wheel truckers coming up there with tree-length loads on there. And sometimes there's 2 or 3. And if you've got some cars and you've got a couple of these trucks there, boy, you're going to have traffic backed up down to the high school down there, waiting for to get by.
Thank you. This time we're going to get you, ma'am.
No,
Sitting behind that gentleman.
Lisa Woody, no problem. I was actually just going to say the same thing. The Russell Road 148 light combination seems to be perhaps an assistive thing. Just give people a heads up because of all the sight lines. Right, you can't see. If you look right from Ward Hill, there's a bit of a hill coming along for you going in Madison, and also the angle of the road is difficult.
Yes, sir, right here.
I hope it's all right. I'm not a resident of Madison, North Anson though, and I do have my name is Phil Mattingly. I do have a lot of trucks that traverse up and down over the hill. I guess, again, it's been, and we're going to start sounding like a broken record here, but concerns of having to stop loaded trucks going up the hill, as well as stopping loaded, and maybe more importantly, stopping loaded trucks coming down the hill is quite a concern. I have had a truck in an accident on that corner, and my driver said as he was coming down the hill, he looks over and he could read the lips of the husband yelling at his wife, "What the F are you doing?" as she traveled straight through the stop sign, never looked, oblivious that there was even a stop sign there, and ran into the side of our truck. Fortunately, there were no major injuries, but it kind of makes me think a part of that problem is if perhaps your mind is not on what you're doing, which happens, people are looking straight through that intersection and it's just not registering that that is the intersection because the road continues on in front of you. So I would just like to really, as many have said, perhaps could you try something to make people aware of that intersection more so from the side roads before we go jump all the way to a four-way stop. I do. I think a four-way stop is gonna be troublesome, very expensive in starting every truck from zero, as well as stopping every truck down to zero coming down the hill. It's a lot of energy expended in doing that with a truck. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir with the hat.
I'm Charlie Kotrax, and I drive that road all the time. My own place is in Mercer, Madison, and Skowhegan, so I always drive that road. The DOT, as far as I'm concerned, has been more responsive than any other department in the state of Maine, so you guys do listen to us. Don't always give us what we want, but listen. I envision more of a thing like what you've done at Stoutmeyer Road, the one down the way with the flashing light. No stop signs on 148, but that flashing light that tells traffic coming, plus maybe something further back on both the Ward Hill Road and what's the other one? On the other side there. To warn people further back, there's traffic approaching, have it come on when there's traffic coming. Not all the time, so that, this is it. Something that's always on, people tend to go through. Something that comes on only when the danger is there, they pay more attention to. Plus, I never saw why they put the speed limit from 40 up to 50 back there around the industrial park roads there. They up it. Maybe extend the 40-mile-an-hour out beyond that intersection, but also lower it to 35 at the intersection. Just not that everybody's going to slow down to 35, but keep them down below. If you keep the 40 limit, it'll keep them from going up. So I see that, and I guess based on what you've already said, this following is like. You can't engineer out stupidity, and it's the drivers, they've got to pay attention. Just on the way in tonight, I have a guy 6 feet off my rear bumper coming in, and two cars coming from my left to that intersection and one from the right, and I'm wondering, geez, is he going to stop? Well, they stopped, but are they going to pull out? Well, foot off the gas, foot on the brake, not applying the brake, but brake lights on so the idiot behind me knows that I'm going to stop and slow down a little bit. He did pull out. There was plenty of room. But, the other thing I would like questions answered is, are the accidents caused by people not stopping at the stop sign? What percentage, if there's, 100 accidents, are 50 of them or 70 of them caused by, people not stopping at the stop sign, or people stopping and then not being able to see. That'll make a difference as to your effectiveness. I think the warning signs, my suggestion there, like Stoutmeyer, would, catch all of that. I'd like an answer to that question as to what percentage are non-stoppers and which are people that stop, and then because of visibility.
Well, we'll have some more information on that in the presentation.
Okay.
If there are other questions, people want to express their opinion or ideas before we show you what we've prepared, we're happy to take them. Yes, ma'am?
My name's Elizabeth Berry, and 2 years ago, we almost lost 5 of our adult kids at that intersection. 2 of our kids live on Ward Hill, and it's insane how fast people drive on there. But what we found out from when our kids were in the accident, a local police person told us, that we found out later it was her stepson that hit our kids, that he and his buddy had been partying, and they thought it'd be hilarious to see if they could blow through that intersection to Old County Road and make it. Thank God our daughter had bought an old police cruiser that was reinforced, because we were told that's the only thing that saved those 5 adult kids' lives 3 days before her wedding. And I don't know how you stop, like they said, the asinine behavior of these drivers. I am like on high alert now when I drive up to that intersection, and you'll see tractor trailers coming off the old county road, and they will not even do a full stop. They roll through there. When I'm coming back from Skowhegan, because now I'm looking at every corner, because I am paranoid of getting hit there, and you'll see those truckers, and a lot of times they're Canadian out-of-state trucks, and they don't do a complete stop there. They roll through that intersection. And I think that's a great idea with some of those trees being cut, because when you're going up through, like towards Skowhegan, you're always looking to see if they're gonna stop. And you'd be amazed if you sat there for a couple days and just watched people. They have 8 stop signs, 6 or 8, right, on Ward Hill?
Yep.
They don't care.
It's speed bumps.
They blow through there, and they will, or they'll do a rolling stop. Or, you know, or they'll just kind of keep inching out. And it's like, if you don't stop coming down through or going up through, you're gonna get creamed. I don't know, do we need a policeman sitting there around the clock, which, that's not a lot of fun.
talking about?
That's not
Keep the comments civil, please. We're not talking about law enforcement here.
Right.
We're here to talk about the intersection.
But I don't know. What can we do? Obviously, we all know there's areas these kids think it's funny to catch air or whatever it is, but like Mr. Bartlett said, that piece of road right there is so smooth. I'm sure they love coming down around that corner really fast. You know, what can you do maybe even farther back to make them like, hello, you've got to stop up there? I don't know. Thank goodness my kids are still alive.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure, I can't imagine that was horrible.
I'd just like to point out that my suggestion, I think, would address that, because it's an active thing that tells people that something is there. Not just a passive that's always there that people are gonna blow through and ignore.
Thanks. Sir?
My name is Darrell Woody. I live in Madison, right around the corner from Peter over here. I'm adjacent to him. The traffic that comes down the hill, turns the corner by his house, it comes by my house. They are going so fast. Mostly it's 60, 65 miles an hour. In 4.5 years, we've had 5 accidents directly in front of my house.
Right.
People into the ditch. I've had trees taken out. I've had several mailboxes taken out on his side, into the ditch, into the driveway of the lady on the other side. It's absolutely insane. And I think that, we're not really far from that intersection. I think that both of those, the number of accidents where we are, should be included in that intersection, because it's all just right there.
Thank you, sir. Okay, in the sake of time, because I know you have a meeting following this presentation, why don't I ask or introduce, this is Dennis Emedy. He's the main highway safety engineer. He's the highway safety engineering unit within my section, or my office. And he's prepared a short presentation to kind of describe the data that we found, a little less than was presented earlier to the municipal officials, but also give you some examples of where we've done this in the past and the results that we've seen, and also some of the ideas that folks had are addressed as part of this proposed solution that we have as well. And so, with that, this is Dennis Emedy.
Thank you for having me here. Elizabeth, you're the only one that I know of that knows somebody has been involved in crashes here at this intersection. This lady's raising her hand. Looking at 10 years of crashes, there's been 34, of which 20 of the 34, or roughly 60% of the crashes, involved at least one Madison resident. When you look at the crashes with people visiting, when you look at the crashes, 28 out of the 34 were either Madison residents or a town adjacent to it, like Anson. So that's 28 out of 34, or roughly 82% of at least one person from Madison is involved in the crash. But I'm going to go into some of the statistics. Why this intersection? Well, Denise brought this up to the state traffic engineer last 2024, but like as Bob mentioned earlier, it is on our radar for the amount of crashes. And like I said, in the last 10 years, there's been 34. In the last 3 years, there were 16. 6 of them.
Could the gentleman speak a little louder or use the microphone, please?
It's on, you just hold it closer.
Can you hear me now? There we go. Sorry. Sorry about that. 34 crashes in the last 10 years, of which 16 in the last 3 years. 82% of those crashes were angle type crashes. Why is that a concern? Because when you're getting hit at 50, the 80, we went out there, as Bob mentioned, and did some speed to see what the vehicle speeds were. And if you had 100 vehicles and you looked at the 85th percentile, the 85th percentile speed was 58 miles an hour driving towards Madison. It was 57 going towards Route 201 coming out of town. So we have a high speed, and we have 82% of the 82% of the crashes resulted in angle crashes. So when you get struck at almost 60 miles an hour on your driver's side, it's not going to fare well. And this intersection has about 65% injuries. And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But this is also a high crash location. It's been a high crash location 8 times since 2003. And I'll get into details with that. But it's ranked number 1 as the worst intersection in Madison, and it's ranked number 2 in the county of Somerset. The worst intersection is in Palmyra, where we've tried a lot of these things that you guys talked about, and we have a project to put in a roundabout in that Palmyra intersection. As was mentioned, another reason why that we look at this intersection, it's ranked 19th in the state out of approximately 32,000 intersections for a probability of having a fatal or serious injury, and that was based on last year, 2024. And in this year, there was 1 serious injury. So looking at the crash data, when I mentioned all these 10 years, in the last 10 years, this is very similar. Actually, there's been more crashes lately than there has been overall, but you can see that there's been 56 crashes since 2000 2004, and that goes back to our electronic records, of which 66% resulted in injury. And you can see on that table on the bottom right that you have a K, an A, B, C, and a PD. When I say injury, injuries are your K, A, B, and C. A K stands for a fatal. Thank God there hasn't been a fatal here. But there's been, over that time period, there's been 5 serious injuries. Injury crashes. That means at least one person had a serious injury in the crash. 11 suspected minor injuries of 11. 21 people complaining of injuries. So those are your injuries, and there's been 19 property damages out of 56. But when you look at the right-hand column of that, there's been 82 injuries over that time period. And like I said earlier, I didn't go back to 2023, but in the last 10 years, 20 out of the 34 involved at least one resident of Madison, if not more.
What does intersection movement crash mean?
Intersection movement that's how they code it, that's how the police reports code it. It's basically, most of the time, it's an angled crash.
Okay.
Like you get a T-bone, either on the driver's side or the passenger side. And I think I even looked, some of those T-bones actually flipped over the car, if I recall properly. Like I said, yes?
My name is Robert Visa, Bob Visa. Out of all these crashes, how many were intoxicated and how many were on the cell phone?
I don't believe we've prepared that for this specific presentation. However, every fatal crash,
Not always has to be fatal.
well, as far as you know, oftentimes we get a crash report. If the officer is expecting drug or alcohol impairment, they'll do tests. When those results come back in as a result of the test, then we would know about it. We don't have it in this presentation, but I'd be glad to get that information for you. Distraction is very tough to discern because unless we have a witness that says so-and-so, and sometimes we do, and it's sometimes an occupant of the vehicle. They were talking on their phone, or they were doing this or doing that. And sometimes the driver will admit that, and that makes it onto the police report. That is the challenge that law enforcement faces, is documenting that. And for us, from a safety analysis standpoint, to know exactly how much distraction with devices and what have you, or other distractions within the car, show up on the crash report. Believe me, I'd love to know exactly, but unfortunately, that's one of the challenges that we face.
So I'll give you an idea, 50% of people that go by my house on 148 were either texting or talking on the cell phone. How's that?
That would not surprise me.
Including the police officers in the town.
So,
Just noticed the post-COVID is where it went up, and it's a general lawlessness since COVID. Not just on the highway, but seems like everywhere.
we have seen
That's not your fault.
increased incidents of crashes involving driving too fast for conditions, driving aggressively, exceeding the posted speed limit. Those are the 3 fields that we typically would see that indicates it's speed related. Yeah, I've noticed, and I read all the fatal crash reports from beginning to end. Last year was about 175 of them, and I got the full details. That is the worst part of my job. To find out how many of these things could be presented or prevented. You know, one of the biggest factors that I see is, and it's surprising to me, oftentimes the difference between being seriously injured in a crash and killed in a crash is wearing your seatbelt. I mean, for how many years have we been told by the TV, by others, through driver's education, wear your seatbelt, click it or ticket. People still aren't doing that. And instead of being secured within the vehicle during a crash and letting that vehicle absorb the energy, the terrible energy of a crash, until it comes to rest, they're either ejected from the vehicle or partially ejected from the vehicle. And the human body does not respond well to forces like that. And so that's a key difference in seeing the increase in the severity of the injury levels in crashes that we see. So we'd be happy to get that data and let the town know how many of those crashes had the factors to the degree we're able to following this meeting, sir.
Yes? Yes?
I'm Don French, Madison Fire Chief. I may have several questions later, but right now, one of them, can you folks go and interview the people that's actually caused the accident? And say, hey, why did you run this stop sign? Because it wasn't marked well, or?
Be an interesting study.
It would be, you know.
Talk, honestly.
I know, but why did they run them? I mean, and to answer a couple of other quick questions, I've been to 1,000 accidents out there, not 1,000, but I've been to several. And a lot of them are out-of-town people. You say Madison residents, probably Madison residents one that's been hit. The last 3 or 4 I can think of was a record driver from Wilton. There was a girl going to a wedding up country. And a lot of times I look in people's rented vehicles with out-of-state plates that don't know the area. But I think you folks ought to go interview a few of these people. It may help us all.
Unfortunately, the challenge for that is we have 33 to 35,000 crashes in the state each year. And so we really have to, given this, it's Dennis and I and 2 junior safety engineers, we really have to rely on what's written in the police reports and getting feedback from EMS responders like you that can give us insight when we're looking at a specific area and trying to diagnose what the problem is and how best to fix it. So it's just a matter of resources for us.
You mentioned that something like 2 out of 3 involved a Madison resident. Was the Madison resident at fault, or was the Madison resident?
It was a vehicle operated. They could have been vehicle number, usually the one, vehicle number 1 is doing something.
You really don't know.
They could have been hit by someone.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So it's just, it involved someone whose driver's license said they were from.
My question, in other words, that gets to unfamiliarity, because everybody in Madison should be familiar with that.
Correct.
Those that aren't may not be, so that's what that question gets at, and you don't know that.
I can't tell you tonight whether they were the driver 1 or driver 2.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to.
Yeah, we gotta move along here, so, thanks Denise.
Yep.
Like I said, a high crash location, you can see in 23 to 25, there's been 16 crashes in the last 3 years. And basically in order to be a high crash location, it has to be 8 or more crashes in a 3-year period.
Is that microphone working?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I gotta really put it almost in my mouth.
You have to. It's got to be right in your mouth.
So, the critical rate factor is basically how does this compare to other intersections? Now, the important thing to know about this doesn't look at injuries. This just looks at pure numbers. So, based on, this is experiencing more than 5 times what the average intersection of similar type in the state would experience. So, I think I discussed a lot of these already. Even members from the audience talked about side roads being on a skew. And yes, it is much better when it's 90 degrees. And this is the view that you get when you don't.
Big hole.
You don't. Either the pillar coming by windshield or in between. So that's, and it blocks sight distance. And then when you get older, you have to look out this way, bend around the corner to see. And yeah, so there's a skew that's has an impact. And also, like when you're coming from Ward Hill Road, there's like a little dip. And sometimes a car could be in that little dip and you don't see it. And then at 58 miles an hour, you know, they come on a lot quicker than you expect. So, this is just looking at the last 5 years from 2021 to 2025. There's been 20 crashes over there over that time period. And you can see, this shows the direction of the vehicles just before the collision, and when it's at a T like that is when it's like an angle crash.
So the intersection definitely needs to be fixed, no matter if you have a stop sign there or not, because turning right from there is retarded. You have to turn pretty left in order to turn right, there's a big hole there. So that could be a lot of that. We've got angle crashes at any rate.
So what have we done before? We've been here before, in 2023. Tim installed some flashing intersection warning signs on Route 148. And we also, now the intersection flashing signs is what we're doing instead of putting in overhead flashing beacons. Because overhead flashing beacons only have, according to national studies, only reduce as a 5% reduction in crashes. And so we've been putting up flashing intersection warning signs ahead of the intersection. And we also, on Ward Hill Road, we installed 2 flashing stop ahead signs, as well as 2 flashing stop signs. And that was to address some of the vehicles that were running through the stop sign from that approach. We also, on County Road, we changed the stop and stop aheads from a static to a flashing sign, flashing LED sign. There weren't as many cars running through that stop sign as on Ward Hill. So we looked at different alternatives. We looked at, you know, a traffic signal. Now, we have to follow the manual on uniform traffic control devices, and there are 12 warrants, and none of the warrants met the need. None of the warrants or none of the justification was met of the 12 warrants. So we can't install traffic signals unless there's at least one signal warrant met. And because that could also create more crashes. We looked at a roundabout. There's very high costs associated with a roundabout, and it wasn't, but as Bob mentioned earlier, we have to look at cost as well as the safety benefits with a roundabout, and the cost benefit wasn't eligible for federal funds. We looked at an always stop, and that had the highest safety benefit of all alternatives that we've looked at. We also, you know, looked at the overhead flashing beacon. Like I said earlier, it wasn't cost effective.
Did you look at the suggestion I had, like Stoutmeyer Road?
Intersection control warning systems, that's what we call those.
What do they call it?
Intersection control warning systems.
Blackwell Hill Road, you talk about, Russell.
What is it? Whatever.
And
The next intersection up, yeah.
And if we're worried about just the cost, what's somebody's life worth?
that's right.
I mean,
I'm worried about the
It's
cost
the
of,
intersection.
I'm worried about someone, the life being lost here.
Did you look at the one that I suggested?
he's talking about the Russell Road and Blackwell Hill Road, the lights are working pretty good there, you got flashing lights telling you when cars are coming. Like he said, if there's always a light there, they're not gonna pay attention to it. If the light flashes only when there's traffic coming, they're gonna pay it, so how is that working?
It's not working well.
It is not.
It's not working well at all. In
What's
fact,
the-
every single one that we have in this, just about every single one in the state, we're removing them and doing another treatment because they have not worked.
Okay, thanks. He asked that question as well as I just did. I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, we had one in Lebanon, we're replacing that. We had one in Sanford, we're replacing it with we replaced it with a signal. We have one in Peru. It's still there, but it's gonna be replaced with a signal.
Not working?
I'm sorry.
In other words, you're saying the system I suggested isn't working?
No, we had one in Palmyra with,
It's in the corner, Route 2.
Palmyra Route 2 and 150,
151.
and that one's not working either. And we've tried a lot of things at that intersection, but the intersection control warning systems, it also warns the main line as well as the side roads, and they just don't work. I'm sorry. So, yes, did you have a question, Jeff?
I can't remember the last time I was out there doing an automobile accident. I disagree with it. I think that's working. That's my opinion.
Agree.
Okay, well,
I live there, those signs are working.
Yeah, I think so too.
okay.
It's my
They're
opinion.
working. We don't have accidents there.
I can't remember the last time I've been out there.
So I think you guys are doing.
I just know that other locations in the state, we've gone,
Dennis is trying to speak.
so, we have over 140 always stops throughout the state, on state roads. At least one of the roads is a state road. And I'm giving you the short version, otherwise I could give you a lot more details, but the benefits of an always stop, and the closest one to here is J at Beans Corner, and I'll be talking about that in a bit. But we've looked at over, like I said, there's over 140 throughout the state, and using our new method that we use for always stops with the flashing LED signs, lowering the speed limit, and all these other treatments, we're finding a 66% reduction in total crashes. But the more important thing is we're seeing a 78% reduction in injury crashes. And that's so, where we are? Where? Yes?
Stephen Pooler in Madison. From what you have said, correcting the skew will be more effective than the four-way stop.
No, it would not.
That's what you said.
No, you're still reading for the four-way stop sign instead of fixing the intersection.
So I'm opposed to the four-way stop. Because that's not fair to the traffic. And there's a lot of commercial traffic on that road versus the other two roads.
Both directions.
Right.
That's not fair to them. Now, I've gone through the one in Fairfield, and I was so disappointed when I first hit that. But the one in Fairfield, after a few times, I says, well, it's not that bad. But the thing is I've never seen a commercial vehicle on that road. And the speed limit's 45 miles an hour on that road. You're talking two different environments.
He's talking about 23 going into Oakland. Four-way
Yes.
stop sign.
Oh, Oakland. Yeah, that's in Oakland.
Well, okay, well, I come in from Fairfield Center when I hit it, so.
So like I said, we've seen a significant reduction in total crashes and injury crashes. I don't know if do we continue doing these questions or?
We have about 2 minutes before the select board meeting is supposed to start.
I'm happy to stay after and answer some questions that you folks might have, but there are some important points I think that I'd like Dennis to show about the effectiveness of these. We fully get that you're concerned about the ability of trucks to stop on the grade, and you want us to look at the removing the skew from the intersection, and we did not look at the removing the skew of the intersection, and also looking at potentially trimming some vegetation, which is certainly something that we can look at depending on the jurisdiction of the road. State crews can only work on within the state right away, but if we have willing property owners that are willing to allow, perhaps, does the town have crews that can trim some branches and things?
You already said that we do have that. Dave Gaines is willing to give up his land, go around that.
Well, I own the property on the corner where everybody crashes on the lawn.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I've struggled heavily to keep tenants in there because of that.
Identify yourself, please.
Joseph Warren. And it's been an issue since the day I bought it 7 or 8 years ago. And if you look at Apple Maps and Google, if you're from down south and you're headed north, the problem is that is the way they take you, instead of through Skowhegan or on 201, they take you through Norwich Walk on Water Hill Road. And it's people unfamiliar with the area, it's because of Apple Maps and Google Maps, if you look it up. So I'm not against the four-way stop, as I own the property and I'm losing value by the day because I struggle to keep people in there.
Which house are you on, sorry, but I need a
Old County Road.
Old County?
Yeah.
Right,
Where everybody ends up on my lawn
When you
and
come
my
up,
septic
you're
system
on the left.
and.
Yeah.
Coming off of Ward Hill, straight ahead.
Yeah.
Getting towards the tomato plant from the bridge, that's where the traffic's going.
My name's Rob Shipley. I own Bob's Cash Fuel on the way, and I just want to point out, I've got 45 vehicles that leave Railborough Street from there every day. We've been in business since 1981. We've never had a problem with that intersection, with my employees or my crew. If there was a concern for us, or if we had a history since 1981 of having accidents on that intersection, I'd be the first one in line to say, we need to do something, because I don't want to send my employees out to get harmed by traveling through an unsafe area. But we just, at Bob's Cash Fuel, we have not had any problem with that intersection at all. We seem to get them out there just fine.
But that's exactly what I just said. It's because of Apple Maps and Google, because of the direction it takes you when you're unfamiliar with the area you're headed north. That's why Bob says in that issues, which nothing against Bob, their employees are familiar with the area. It's, I'm sure if you look back in the history of the wrecks, it's the people that are not familiar with the area that are headed north to whatever it may be. But if you're from south and headed north, then that's the way their routes take you.
Okay.
All right, we need to let Dennis get to the points that he needs to make. Dennis?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Thank you for your
feedback. Looking back at our records, just so you know, there's been 0 fatals at an always stop. And it has most of the time, we're able to do these always stops with maintenance forces. And so that brings down the cost, and it has a very high safety benefit to cost ratio, but that's. I want to give you an example of Casco. This was converted in 2019, where town wanted a signal, but it didn't need a signal warrant. But looking at this, I can't see the numbers. Looking at this, we've seen a 64% reduction in crashes. 66% reduction in injury crashes at this intersection. And this is what it looked like before. Here's the 3 years before. There were 14 crashes, including a fatal there. 3 years later, there were 5 crashes.
Is it on the hill?
No, but Jay is, and I can go over that quickly.
Just go to the J results.
Okay, Jay. Here's the intersection of Route 156 and 133. The posted speed limit, as was recommended by the town in the past, to lower the speed limit because of the number of crashes, and we lowered it to 35. And it also has a flashing overhead beacon.
Been there, done that, I've been there.
Good. So here's the approach before. And again, we had the overhead flashing beacons. So the posted speed was 35 miles an hour, and the average speed was between 45 and 42 miles an hour. So the average speed is 7 to 10 miles an hour higher. The 85th percentile was 52 going up the hill and 51 going down the hill. This is what it looks like right now. As you approach this all-way stop, here's your optical bars. This would be very similar to what would be proposed here. And then you have your pavement markings with flashing LED signs on the left and on the right. Stop ahead, as well as pavement markings. And then when you come up closer, you also have double flashing stops, LED stops on the left and the right. So this is very similar because the traffic entering the crash, the vehicles entering this intersection is almost the same volume as the ones at this intersection. It's a little bit higher here, but it's only like a couple hundred vehicles. It's also, this one has a 6% grade for about a half a mile going down the hill to get to this approach, which is steeper than what we have over here. So what we're seeing here, I know it was converted in May of 2024, so I don't have 3 years yet.
But if you notice, they fixed the intersection itself, the road itself is wide.
All of those, they have a lot more hot top than the
That's correct.
intersection that you want to work on with
There you
four-way
go.
stop here.
Right.
We gotta fix that corner first.
Yeah.
The road's up. The end of that road's broke right off. If you can fix it 2 weeks later, it's got another great big hole there. Truck, tractor trailers can't make that corner without going in the middle of the other road or going off the Wood Hill Road.
Okay, those comments are critical information that needs to be relayed to Bob. And if you can hold those comments until the end and talk to Bob afterwards so we can start the select board meeting, which is already delayed, that would be greatly appreciated. He will take notes. He will have a better understanding of what you're talking about one-on-one. Okay, thank you.
So here's the 3 years before. This was also ranked very high on the potential fatal and serious injury list. You can see there were 35 crashes in 36 months before and after. This is about 1 year, almost one year, 3/4, so almost 2 years, coming up on 2 years. And we've seen a 69% reduction in crashes.
Those rear end crashes on the mowers right there?
Yep, there's some rear ends on the right, but look at the ones on the left. Those are all angle crashes. So at 55 miles an hour, the likelihood of having a fatal or serious injury is 6 times greater than it is at 25 miles an hour of 1%. So 6 times as likely to have a fatal or serious injury with an angle crash at 55 miles an hour versus 25. But you can see the number of crashes have reduced and the number of injuries. We don't have A's and B's. There's 2 potential people complaining of injuries. So there's been significant reduction as this temporary measure in J, okay? I could go on and give you examples of how well these things perform with always stops. You talked about delay. You talked about delay. What is delay at the intersections?
I think she will.
Right, yeah, we're gonna have to,
Finish this up.
I know,
yeah.
we're gonna have to come back, I think, and possibly do another, information session. Once you take all of this information back to the office and analyze what could be versus what the plan is, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to come back and?
Sure, and I'd be happy to, I'll be in the lobby area back there if someone wants to chat with me, and I'll take your notes for consideration. The one thing I want to impress is something needs to be done here. We recognize that we have what we, as professional engineers, feel is the right solution, but we're certainly open to hearing other suggestions and concerns. And that's why I'm here. And if it wasn't clear because I didn't have the mic, I'd be happy to meet in the lobby area here afterwards for those that are here specifically to talk about this intersection. But I don't want to delay the select board meeting any longer on this. Yes, sir.
Can you give the audience a good, honest answer? Have you guys made your mind up on this?
Sounds like you have.
Yeah.
Keep it civil, please.
Mine was a civil.
Give him a yes, it was.
We want to take the thoughts that have been expressed here as well as the suggestions. There were a couple of things that were not part of our initial analysis that we want to discuss and look at. Just to be clear,
You haven't answered my question, sir.
we're going to do something here, whether it's the always stop. Currently, that is our recommendation, but I need time to consider what input was given here and suggestions and address some of the concerns people had as far as vegetation sightline improvements. It sounds like there are vehicles turning and potentially that's causing some issues turning out onto 148 that we want to take a look at. We were not intending to redesign the intersection for the purposes of allowing trucks to turn from Ward Hill Road onto 148 in either direction. This is the first that we've heard that that's something that is of interest to people. I'm not sure that the Office of Safety, through the work that we do, that's what we would be charged with, but that's certainly something that the region staff, the region planner would be happy to meet with the municipal officials to talk about if that's something they'd like to pursue. How to find the right money source to do that is another complexity. So where I stand right now is we have a recommendation. We're going to take this additional information and digest it. I'm going to share this information that we've gleaned tonight, and if you'd like us to have another presentation or another meeting to talk about the second half of the presentation, I'm going to let the chief engineer and the commissioner know what your thoughts are, and we'll have a discussion, and we will make a recommendation to them. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they're the big dogs. They get to decide one way or the other, particularly if we as professional engineers and you as members of the public disagree. I would encourage you to put your thoughts and concerns in writing. Feel free to send them to me or to Dennis. I don't know if you have your email address written there. If not, I can provide it to the town and perhaps put it on the website.
Yeah.
If people would like to send me an email, regarding this particular issue, then we'll consolidate that in and share that with the commissioner and the chief engineer as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'll be up in the lobby if anyone wants to have a chat.
Thank you, Bob and Dennis and Tim. And thank you, everybody, for your comments and your suggestions and your input. And we look forward to a visit when they come back with the next alternative. We're going to take 5 minutes, and then we'll start the select board meeting.